These are Gyaru. They're a fashion subculture that's really popular in Japan. They're known for their brightly dyed hair, tan skin, tight clothes, and enough makeup to clog your lungs. Part of their identity is about standing out in a culture that values fitting in. And for the longest time, Gyarus were stereotyped very negatively. They were always seen as the promiscuous bimbos. They were the shallow gold diggers that valued wealth, looks, and status. If they were in America, they would be the stereotypical mean girls. But the ironic thing is, so many modern anime have Gyarus as their MC. Characters like Kitagawa Marin from My Dress Up Darling or Momo Ayase from Dandadan are examples of Gyaru characters that are widely beloved and are nothing like the negative popular stereotypes that portray Gyaru people to be. So the question is, why the change of heart? What made popular Japanese media go from demonizing people in this subculture to making them main character material? And what's with the citrus orange spray tan? They look like they just came out of the deep fryer. And the answer to that is a lot more complicated than you think.
フルーツが
ヒビスカスが流行ってたと思うんですけど、ヒビスカスが
So before I explain why the change of heart about Gyaru characters, it's important to know how Gyaru came to be. While it's true that the Gyaru aesthetic is a response to conservative Japanese social beauty standards, a huge reason as to Gyaru's popularity is owed to the nightclub scene in places like Shibuya and all across Tokyo. At the height of Japan's economic boom during the 1980s, a lot of people could afford to spend their money more freely. And one thing they did spend on was the latest fashion trends and the local nightlife. During this time, bodycon fashion was sweeping through Japan from Europe. This was a form of fashion that emphasized the body. It was form-fitting, exudes confidence, and depending on the cut, was very, very risque for the time. Add on the fact that celebrities like Amuro Namie popularized fads like tan skin and platform shoes, early Gyaru fashions were rooted in trends like these. It was a loud form of dress for an equally loud group of people determined to stand out in their own way. And Japanese media was smitten with this. Just imagine being a person from 1980s suburbia Japan and you see people dressed up like this. You either didn't get it or you were heavily intrigued by it. And a lot of people were intrigued by it, especially high school girls. Since the trend emerged in the Tokyo nightclub scene, a lot of underage high school girls actually tried to get into these places due to how trendy they were. But when they were turned away due to obviously being underaged, this actually motivated them to create their own brand of Gyaru, called Kogyaru. This was a form of Gyaru that emphasized the school uniform. Female students would make modifications to their outfits like baggy socks or even hiking up their skirts to make them shorter in direct imitation of the bodycon fashion sexiness. And what's funny is that Kogyaru is one of the more common forms of Gyaru fashion that most weebs are exposed to. Since so many stories take place in high school, you've definitely seen a Kogyaru before. One really good example is Momo Ayase from Dandadan. Her base school outfit is the definition of Kogyaru. Short skirt, baggy socks, big-ass earrings, and choker that are definitely not regulation, which I'ma be honest, I have no idea how school admin hasn't come down on her yet for breaking the dress code so openly. Even her other outfits are straight up just bodycon clothing remade to be a bit more casual. Add on her very abrasive and outspoken attitude, she's what it means to be a Gyaru not just aesthetically, but in character as well. She's loud, proud, and in your face. But while the Gyaru scene prides itself on being outspoken and brave, it's this rebellious streak that would eventually have it labeled as dangerous.
Looks like some pretty hardcore action. Sorry, does it hurt to touch?
So it's no secret that Gyaru culture wasn't really portrayed in the best light, least of all in anime. Go watch any anime from the 90s or even 2000s with Gyaru characters in them, and then go watch more modern anime. There is a light and day difference on how Gyaru characters are portrayed. And weird to say, but you can kind of blame the economy for this. Okay, so you know that economic boom that I mentioned earlier, where Japan's economy was literally too good to be stopped, which gave most Japanese people insane spending power? Well, it kind of got stopped. In the 1990s, Japan's economic bubble essentially exploded and plunged the country into a really bad recession. The economy slowed, youth unemployment rose, people were forced to become more frugal at a time of economic uncertainty. But the thing is, modern Gyaru culture emerged right as the bubble was bursting. And with a subculture that's all about spending on the latest fashion trends and cosmetics, this blatant consumerism was an easy scapegoat by older Japanese generations to label youth cultures like Gyaru as irresponsible and wasteful. As Laura Miller says in her book, Beauty Up, Exploring Contemporary Japanese Body Aesthetics, she says, quote, "Designations such as Kogyaru transform the possible insurrectionary potential of some of the new girl subcultures into a uniform group of mindless bad girl consumers. It also serves as a vehicle for mainstream outrage at the economic and cultural power of youth." Since it's far easier to blame others for your situation rather than yourself, many older Japanese people, especially those in positions of power, were more than willing to deflect any blame by focusing on the perceived bad behaviors of these youth groups. Laura Miller would continue to say in her book, quote, "A credible image of social cohesion can be maintained through the appropriation and redefinition of cultures of resistance. The media records girls' resistance, but then recuperates it through labeling and redefinition." And it was during this period that anime ran wild in portraying the Gyaru subculture. On the best of days, Gyaru characters were simply just shallow, airheaded popular girls. Their only focus was on fashion, looking good, and boys. Head empty, no thoughts. On the worst days, Gyaru characters were these promiscuous individuals that were willing to bounce on it freaky style with whoever that was willing. Even old anime that were sympathetic to the Gyaru cause still played into some popular negative stereotypes. Anime like Gals. It's literally just called Gal with an exclamation mark. With its self-professed Gyaru main character, still had her be this ditzy and shallow individual who loved to focus on her looks. The show does try to tell a more human side of Gyaru subculture, but ultimately the anime still chose to lean in on that dumb, absent-minded stereotype for Gyarus. You know you're not doing a subculture any favors when you make your character physically gifted, but like, she's dumb as a rock. And I know these characters and stereotypes are played up for laughs, but you gotta remember, these were the most common ways to portray Gyaru characters for the longest time. Add on the fact that the Gyaru subculture was heavily implicated with the Injo Kosai scene, which, to keep it brief, is essentially underage sugar daddying. The late 90s and 2000s were not kind to anyone that was a part of the Gyaru subculture. But eventually, Gyaru fashion would fade in popularity by the early 2010s. And as the culture faded, with the economy slowly improving, it became less threatening and less of a scapegoat, and with the space to breathe, there was room for reinterpretation. So you can't keep a good subculture down for long, cause while Gyaru might have disappeared from the mean streets of Shibuya, it didn't mean they wouldn't come back at all. Following an aesthetic trend called Heisei Retro, which was basically Japan's Y2K, where everything from the 90s and 2000s were looked back on with nostalgia and romanticized, interest in the Gyaru subculture was reignited. But there was a huge change in how people would interact with it. Okay, so you know how some parts of the Gyaru subculture needed you to tan your skin to an extreme degree? Well, it was stuff like this that was a huge barrier for some to really embrace the Gyaru identity. I mean, it's a pretty big ask to make yourself look like a burnt chicken nugget. So what essentially happened was a kind of softening. People were interested in the Gyaru aesthetic again, but they didn't necessarily want to carry the burden of its original countercultural roots. As the Gyaru blog Lexi Paprika wrote in their post, quote, "This has been the fate of Gyaru. Its history of social defiance, rejection from mainstream society, and eventual commodification have been largely diluted in favor of a media-friendly fantasy of carefree youth culture. Where once Gyarus had deep, dark tans, modern Gyarus would have natural or light tans. Where they once had brightly bleached blonde hair, modern Gyarus might have subtle highlights or dye their hair a lighter shade of brown. This softening of the Gyaru aesthetic wasn't just commodification, it was an opening up. Rather than Gyaru having a hard set definition, it became more about a spectrum of bold, self-chosen aesthetics. As Lexi Paprika would continue to say in the same post, quote, "Even at its height, Gyaru was both rebellion and spectacle, self-expression and consumerism. And this softening was carried over into anime and manga. No longer were gyaru portrayed as these ditzy, promiscuous characters, but were now these compassionate and independent girls leading the charge. One really good modern example is none other than Kitagawa Marin from My Dress Up Darling. Aesthetic-wise, she's got the whole ko-gyaru, neo-gyaru look down pat. And that iconic self-assertive and independent gyaru attitude, she uses it to be more compassionate. In episode 1, she's upset that her classmates would ditch their responsibilities onto Gojo. And in the same scene, she doesn't hesitate to help him clean up, while at the same time telling him to stand up for himself. She actively hates it when people talk down and belittle other people's interests, seeing as how she's super into nerdy hobbies herself, like cosplay. She directly challenges the stereotypes of gyarus as being purely superficial and materialistic. And keep in mind, I'm only using her as an example because she's one of the more recent instances of modern gyaru characters. The whole introverted guy meets high status popular girl who turns out to be pure-hearted and kind trope is really popular in anime and manga. This kind of story just lends itself to having a gyaru main character. The closest comparison I can make is like the manic pixie dream girl trope from Western media, but even then it's not really a one-to-one comparison because gyaru characters haven't really been toned down. They're still loud, assertive, playfully teasing, and unapologetically confident, which are all core tenets of the original gyaru movement. But the meaning of those traits has changed. Where they were once portrayed as obnoxious and selfish, that same energy is now used to uplift the people around them. Their boldness isn't portrayed as problematic. Rather, it's used to stand up for others, and showing that introverted MC just had to live a little. In a way, gyaru culture cut its own redemption arc. Once seen as this foreign exotic thing, then vilified, then dismissed, and now re-emerging in anime as a symbol of authenticity and emotional honesty. They're no longer rebels, but are reminders of what it means to be seen, to be heard, and to be loved for being bold. Hey guys, Muxedotask here. I just want to say thank you if you're still here and you've made it this far into the video. It genuinely means a lot that you're willing to say and watch me yap for 12 minutes straight. I just want to use this part of the video to say thank you as well for getting me to 10k subs. Oh man, I really don't know what to say to that. Thank you. It really means a lot as well to have that many people just want to listen to some random guy from Malaysia yap about random shit that he finds interesting. So yeah, thank you so much for getting me to that magical number. I know it's not a lot in the grand scheme of YouTube, but like, honestly, it's still surreal to see that magic 10, now 11, on my YouTube front page. So yeah, thank you so much for that. It really means a lot, and I will be forever grateful for the support that you guys give. Anyway, because we reached 10k subs, I want to do a Q&A type video, or at least try to do a Q&A type video. I don't know if I'll have enough questions for a full video. But yeah, if you guys want to ask me questions, anything at all, you can leave them in the comment section of this video, or leave them in the comment section of a community post that I plan to do like 4 days from now. YouTube does this weird thing of where like when you post a video, you can't make a community post alongside the video. I have no fucking clue why it does that. Or if you want to ask me in a different place, you can also DM me on Instagram and TikTok. I also have my other socials there where you can ask me any questions. I don't have a Twitter because I want to avoid that godforsaken website. I also don't have a Discord because I'm someone who's very introverted IRL, so I can't really promise I'll interact a lot if I have a Discord. So yeah, you can ask me questions on any of my socials, or leave them in the comments, or leave them in the community post that I'm going to make a few days from now. So yeah, just leave them there. If there's enough questions, I'll probably make it into its own video, but if there isn't, then I can just put some at the end of every video answering them as I go. So yeah, that's my plan for now. Thank you so much for watching my videos, and thank you so much for supporting me in whatever ways that you have or do or did. It means a lot, and I will see you guys next time.